Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to the panelists, organizer of the conference, researchers, and all of the audience around the world. Thank you for the opportunity given to present the result of the research that we have done. Let me introduce myself. My name is Joko Santoso from the Faculty of Economic and Business, University of Indonesia. Currently, I am also a procurement officer in one of the state institutions in Indonesia. In this research, I am under the supervision of Mrs. Nurmala from University of Indonesia. The topic of this research is analysis of causal relationship key factors in the implementation of supplier relationship management in public procurement. The presentation is divided into 5 parts. The first is the introduction, the second is the literature review, the third is the methodology, the fourth is the analysis, and the last is the conclusion and recommendation. As an introduction, currently our companies or organizations need suppliers. Without suppliers, it is difficult for companies' operation to be carried out effectively and efficiently. Therefore, the role of supplier is very supportive of achieving company goals and increasing the company's competitive advantage. An efficient supplier will support low-cost leader strategy, while an innovative supplier will support a differentiation strategy. We can see that in the manufacturing sector, many companies have thousands of suppliers. The large number of suppliers requires good management, known as supplier relationship management. How about in the public sector? We see data on government spending to suppliers through public procurement reaching 30% to 20% of GDP. In certain countries, it even reached 50%. As an illustration, with Malaysia's GDP of USD 380 billion, the expenditure for supplier reached USD 70 billion. From the needs of government goods and services, the types are very diverse, ranging from infrastructure, IT, system, until routine needs such as stationery. This condition requires many suppliers so that there is a need to manage. Several public institutions have implemented SRM, but from the result of the research, the level of satisfaction has not met expectation, both from the management side and from the infrastructure or system side. In addition, several other issues faced were related to transparency, mitigation of corruption, collusion, nepotism risk, and handling complaints from suppliers. In order to improve the implementation of SRM in public institutions, there are two things that are the main concern. First, to know what factors affect the implementation of SRM and the amount of available resources. Organizational resources are generally limited, so that improvement needs to be focused on the main dominant factors so that the objective of SRM processing can be achieved efficiently. Research on public procurement is still very limited, especially in the field of SRM, so that it became one of my motivation in conducting this research. From this background, there are two research questions, namely how to identify the main factors in the implementation of SRM in public procurement. Second, how to determine the causal relationship between among factors so that the main factor is obtained. We hope that this research can be useful for academic world as a reference for SRM research in public institutions. Meanwhile, for the business world, it can provide information for decision makers in improving SRM effectively and efficiently by focusing on the main dominant factors by paying attention to available resources. In conducting this research, we do an initial literature review for several aspects. First, the introduction of supplier relationship management. SRM is basically how to manage suppliers. This management requires a high level of efforts and commitment from both parties. Second, what factors influence the implementation of SRM? From the research of Portal, Triparty, and DAS in 2020, it is known that there are 4 main dominant factors. The research was conducted in the manufacturing sector in India, and this research is one of the main reference in my research. Furthermore, for public procurement is procurement carried out by state institutions, both government and state-owned enterprises. Just like private sector, the government also pays attention to aspects of efficiency, governance, and sustainability in public procurement. Finally, the study used several methods, namely systematic literature review, Delphi Method, to identify the main factors, and the second is the fuzzy Dematel method to analyze causal relationship among factors so that the bounding factors are known. The depending of the method we use is the type of research is hybrid. We use qualitative and quantitative. The data sources are primary and secondary. The data collection is through interview and questionnaires and literature studies. And the methods we use are SLR, Delphi, and fuzzy Dematel. From the research, the process and result is states can be explained. In identifying the main factors, we first use SLR, which was carried out through 4 stages, namely search, selection, evaluation, as well as analysis and synthesis. In the search stage, we use keywords with research limitation of the last 10 years, and we use 2 databases. The results obtained 190 articles. In the selection stage, we use several inclusion and exclusion criteria and obtain 553 articles. Furthermore, an evaluation was carried out by looking at the substance and checking the rating of the journal at Simago GR and obtained the result of 65 articles consisting of 49 from ProQuest and 16 from Taylor and Francis. For the final stage, analysis and synthesis of the 65 article was carried out and obtained 12 factors that influence the influence of SRM from various sectors and geographical location. The next method is Delphi to identify the relevance of these key factors in public procurement. This method begins with determining the experts and compiling a questionnaires. Furthermore, a survey was conducted and the results were analyzed with a consensus limit of more than equal to 80%. From the 12 factors in the previous stage, there was one factor that did not get a consensus, namely shared vision and common goal. So it was excluded from the main factor. From the input obtained, the vision and goals of the government and suppliers can be different as long as each carries out the rights and obligations according to the contract. So far, it's okay. The last stage is to analyze the causal relationship between factors using the Dematel method. Data processing begins with collecting data from experts to making a causal relationship metric. From the 11 factors that have been identified, there are 6 factors that have a positive causal relationship or can be categorized as causes because the effect more than are influenced. Meanwhile, 5 other factors are included in the effect category. From the result of processing the causal relationship, it is described in the form of diagrams. In the diagram of strength and level of the relationship, then for factors whose values are positive or fall into the cause category will be above the graph, while for the effect category, it will be below the graph. Meanwhile, the causal relationship diagram shows the influence of the main factors that are dominant on other factors. Presentation of the diagram if the influence value exceeds the average of each influence in the system. Meanwhile, if it is below the average, it is not included in the diagram. From the data processing that has been done, it can be summarized from the research objective, which are the identification of the main factors and the analysis of causal relationship. The research was carried out in 3 stages. First, identify the main factors from various sectors and geographical location, known 12 factors. Furthermore, validation of its relevance to public procurement was carried out and 11 factors were obtained. Finally, from the causal relationship analysis, it is known that 6 main dominant factors are supplier development, good management practices, IT capability, external institutional pressure, supplier competence and capabilities, as well as collaboration and integration. In carrying out the research, input from expert and literature related to strategies that can be used to manage the main dominant factors was also obtained. Regarding the conclusion, first, there are 11 main factors that influence the implementation of SRM in public procurement. Second, from the 11 factors, there are 6 main dominant factors. Furthermore, there are strategic inputs for these factors. For example, in supplier development program should prioritize 2 suppliers who provide the greatest benefit in the fulfillment of goods and services. Regarding recommendation, this research can be used as a literature or a reference for the academic world in the field of SRM in the public sector. For the business world, it can be used to improve the implementation of SRM, and with this approach, states institutions can prioritize the allocation of the resources on the main dominant factors. In addition, further research can be carried out by expanding the scope and geographic location or using other methods to determine the main dominant factors. That's our presentation. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully it can be useful for all of us. Thank you.